Welcome to Crow Street and welcome to my home. You catch me about to make dinner for Pops, Margaret and me. This is going to be our pudding, a simple custard and stewed fruit. My name is Mrs. Wilding, Emily Wilding, and I live here with my husband Fred, everyone calls him Pops, and my granddaughter Margaret, well, step-granddaughter really. The first Mrs. Wilding died a few years before we married in 1929. 25 years ago now. Fred is foreman and head horseman at Abbott's Hall. When we met, I was the cook. I gave up with that, obviously, when we married. There have been a lot of changes since then, but we're still here. And he'll be home at 1 o'clock, so I best get on. Let's start by cracking some eggs. We'll need 6, more if the eggs are small. And I'm going to beat them a little to break them up. When I first came here, there was Captain and Mrs. Long up at Abbott's Hall, and the estate was much bigger. I was one of 4 live-in servants, and much of what we used in the kitchen came from the farm. Now the Captain and Mrs. Long are dead, and there's just their daughters unmarried left. The farm's been given up. I don't like to buy eggs from the market if I can help it, as you don't know how fresh they are. These are from my sister, and so are very fresh. Now to prepare the milk. I'm going to add some sugar. I'm going to add some bay leaves. And a little lemon peel. And then I'll put the pan on the hob to heat it up so it will get some flavour. While I mix a little more milk with some brown and Paulson's, that's corn flour. I do miss getting milk from the farm, although the milkman is very reliable. When I first moved here in 35, it was to run a dairy. It's 2 cottages really, but there's been a lot of changes since then. We lived in half of it, and then through the wall were the Lamberts and the dairy. I got very used to using skimmed milk. That's when the top of the milk is skimmed off to be used as butter. But if you can afford it, whole milk is much better for custard. Now my milk is boiling, I'm going to add my corn flour slurry and give it a good stir, which will thicken it quite nicely. Adding corn flour to your custard to stop it from curdling is quite a useful cheat. Sometimes I use Bird's or other custard powders, but corn flour is cheaper and I think tastes nicer. I suppose it depends on whether you want your custard to always taste of vanilla. Apparently, Mr. Bird invented custard powder because his wife was allergic to eggs. Imagine! No cake! I'm now going to take out the bay leaves and the lemon. And I'm going to gradually mix it in with my eggs. And I'm going to give it a whisk to make sure it's mixed through. And now I'm going to return it to the hob. You mustn't let it boil though, or it will curdle. You have to keep stirring. I like to check the temperature every now and then with my finger. That was something I learnt to do when I was a housemaid in Kensington. The custard should be thick. None of this custard sauce nonsense, unless you're cooking for the gentry. Custard sauce is very Kensington. I grew up round here. I left school during the Great War when I was 13. I had to really, we couldn't afford to keep me there. I didn't like London. I got very homesick. So when I heard that they needed a cook here at Abbots Hall, I jumped. And the Longs knew my family a bit, so they knew I was a safe bet. Before the war, large houses didn't like to use servants that were local. I think they thought we might steal the silver or something. But during the 20s, more servants lived out, and it was harder to find good people. Oh, there, we're done. Now, there is always a debate in our house. Pops and I like a skin on our custard, but Margaret doesn't. So I'm going to put it into this jug and she can take the custard from the bottom. When I worked at the big house, I would have served this in a glass bowl with crushed ratafias and pink sugar. How things have changed. Now I know what you're thinking. Why isn't she using the refrigerator? We do have electricity. The Miss Longs put it on for me, which was very generous, but the fridge has never worked. And so I use it as a cupboard, and it's very good for that. I don't really need a fridge. I buy meat every day from the butcher, and milk is delivered daily and keeps nice and cool out there in the corridor. I'm going to serve this with stewed fruit. And so I have here some pears and quinces. They take quite a long time to cook, and so I used the pressure cooker for them. I suppose I was trained to cook in a very Victorian way, but some modern things are really very useful. Although pressure cookers aren't really that modern, they were invented over 300 years ago, but they've only really become popular since the war, the last one. And they make cooking things like quinces and oxtail and things that take a long time a doddle. You might be thinking that my pressure cooker looks very smart. That's because it was a Christmas present and I'm very pleased with it. My quinces are looking a little brown. All the best ones went up to Abbott's Hall, and these look not quite as nice. And I do have the pears to go with them. There. That looks nice. I'm going to serve sausage and potato cakes from the leftover mash for the main, and maybe with some peas, but I don't need to get to that yet. I'll just have a little bit to test it now. I do like stewed fruit. It keeps you regular. And custard. The thicker the better. Good English food this is.